Hello, everyone, and welcome to Real Talk with Patrick. Today, I have a special guest on the podcast. You've seen her before in another podcast of ours. It's Deanna. Welcome, Deanna. Hi. How are you doing today? Today, for the podcast, I don't know what you were wanting to talk about, but we could talk about anything. Is there anything in particular you'd like to say, or?
I don't know. We didn't plan this very well, did we?
It's okay. Um, so how about we talk about ways that we've kept ourselves busy during the pandemic that's been happening and, raging through the world and our country ourselves of Canada. So, how have you been trying to keep yourself busy during the pandemic?
That's a good question because it has been over a year, as we all know. And as you know, pre-pandemic, I wouldn't call myself a social butterfly, you might. But people were always surprised at how often I was out in the evenings because I would go play floor hockey, which I don't do now because I don't actually think they're allowed to play at this point. I know periodically over the last year they've said like, "Oh, we've reopened it." I go, "I don't think so. I think I'm gonna pass on that. I don't know these people." Um, I mean, I know the people on my team, but we're also pretty random strangers that just sort of came together through the floor hockey community. So I don't know what they do for work necessarily. I don't know different stuff. So I just wasn't personally willing to risk that. Other people may have been. I just personally wasn't. And then on top of that, I would often go out to live theater performances. So I was often out at the theater like probably once a week or so. And then on top of that, my husband and I are huge sports fans, specifically hockey. So we would go see our local sports hockey team play, and we would usually do 10 games a year during that hockey season. So a lot of out of the house activities that are no longer a thing that are available to me because all of those things are closed or dark or I've just opted not to participate for my own safety. Um, so the first part of the pandemic was very much just like, you know what? It's kind of nice to be home a lot. Like, kind of nice, like, because when you go to the theater or whatever, you end up, oh yeah, on top of like the actual live theater, my husband and I also really like going to the movies, which again, not a thing to do. So, um, yeah, I never really realized how much time I spent in a large crowd until COVID hit, and I thought, yeah, I really do spend a lot of time outside the house. So all of those things are like off the table. So I kind of go, okay, now what? Totally new life. Um, so yeah, a lot of time at home, which is kind of nice. So I found that my house has been a lot cleaner. Just spending more time at home, and this is true. I mean, you know this. I don't know if you've looked at the news and stuff recently, but like the cost of lumber is out of control.
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna go there, but like people are renovating their homes. Apparently, there's like a huge influx in people who want not indoor pools, but like backyard pools and in-ground pools, home renovations, all these kinds of things are just like skyrocketing. So we did a little bit of sort of like home stuff, nothing crazy by any stretch, but stuff that we sort of put off because we were always working out of the home, and now that we're home, it's a little easier to get a contractor in to do the work because we're actually available and here, and we're here, so we kind of want it done. It's a little more, I'll say, pressing. It's not like our house was in disarray, but yeah, so that's been a big part of it for me is just sort of like stuff around the house. I don't know if you found that too, like.
So, kind of going back as well, I wouldn't say I was as social outside of a person. I mean, some people, it's funny. I was talking to a friend and they were like, "You were so busy all the time." And I'm like, "Was I busy?" Like you don't realize how busy you are. But I mean, I had like plans usually on like weekends or sometimes evenings or whatever. And they would be like plans where like I was out all night or something like that. So, but I did enjoy my quiet times at home too. So, kind of like what you said was when it first started, the pandemic, and everyone was to be at home, it was a whole like, oh, this is kind of nice. Like, you get to like enjoy yourself a little bit, but then it's also like, it's kind of like exciting. Not exciting, but like, oh, something new, right? Like crazy. And sometimes I like feed into like that energy of like suspense and whatever. Not always like for good reasons, but anyways. But then after a while, that's the thing. You're like, okay, now what? Now this, now that. And I live in an apartment. So I don't I don't have the luxury or the worry of costs for like wanting to repair things or fix things because I can't do that anyways. But you kind of want to do those things because you're at home all the time. And that's the thing, right? Like living in an apartment, you're also like confined to such a small space. So you're like, okay, you wake up and then you're like, I guess I'll go to the living room. And then, oh, maybe the dining room, which is like 5 feet away, not even. And then, oh, let's go back to the bedroom. Like, you know what I mean? So it's just kind of funny like that. Not funny, but funny. And yeah, so I kind of know what you're saying. It's the price of lumber, we won't get into that, is like crazy. It's insane. And like the housing market's been insane. Everything's been crazy. And I mean, yeah, if I had a house, I'd probably want a backyard pool too. Cause
Right.
yeah.
I mean, I don't, I live in a townhouse, so it's not like I could put it, I'm not, I don't particularly like water that way anyway. I've never really liked swimming or pools. I like lakes, but anyway, it's a whole other whatever conversation, I guess. But um, I couldn't do that even if I wanted to, unless I had like a kiddie pool above ground. That would be about all I have room for. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy that we bought our house when we did, quite a few years ago now. And I'm also happy, like we'd kind of looked at because we're two, we don't have you, we have cats, that's it. We don't have kids or anything. So, we had considered a smaller space, like a perhaps a condo or something to that effect, because we neither of us are interested in cutting grass. Neither of us are interested in like massive amounts of acreage. We're not like, we don't have cars or anything where well, we have cars, but we don't have like, workshop stuff. Like we're just not those people necessarily. So, and for us, part of it was just being a little bit more cognizant of the footprint we're leaving and those types of things. So we wanted something that was, we had pretty specific sort of stuff we wanted when we bought our first house and the only house we've bought now. But we ended up with a townhouse, and it has three floors. Like it's kind of your standard basement, main floor, upstairs. But it is 3 bedrooms. So we always had an office in the house. So now that we're both working from home, it's very nice that we have those spaces, because I truly couldn't imagine living in a condo and working from home with another person. If I were by myself or one person, of course, that's a totally different situation. Um, but not in this case. And like, it's not to say that, I mean, we're still married, so that's good. We still we haven't divorced as a result of the pandemic or anything. But um, I just even just because we're both often on the phone or in meetings or anything like that. I mean, that's it, and yeah, like just confidentiality and those types of things. Like it's really nice to have a door. I'm actually in my office right now. Um, it's really nice to just have a door to be able to say, this is my office space. This is where I'm working. And if I'm not working here, just close the door and don't go in there on the weekend. I mean, this is an exception for something as for use of the space, but otherwise, yeah, I don't really come in here, and it's very much my sort of personal little office space. So that's kind of nice. So I was getting used to that at the beginning of the pandemic too, right? Like just also working from home, and well, you and I worked together, and we worked from home very early on. Like I
Mhm.
don't know when you started working from home, but I anyway, our workplace had one of the first cases in our city, actually, if you recall. I'm sure you do. And a lot of rumors going around. People didn't know what was happening. It was very uncomfortable. And that first day I came back in after hearing that, I was not comfortable and like was upset. My boss pulled me in and said like, "Are you okay?" I said, "I don't want to be here. Like I don't feel comfortable being here. I don't want to be here. Like I need to leave." And she was wonderful. Said, "Yeah, by all means." And I had the foresight, I guess, or the frame of mind where I was like, "You know what? I don't think I'm coming back to the office for a while." And I threw in like my headset and like stuff that I knew that I would need for home to work from home for a period of time. Now, I didn't anticipate what 14 months now or 13 and a half months, but I like we were working on a big project. I took like the binder of that, I have it back there somewhere. Like I really did have the foresight to sort of bring what I thought I'd need for a period. I highlighters. I was like, I need like paper. I brought a little bit of that home with me. So I was pretty well set up actually, and I never did really go back to the office after that. I have gone in a few times for different meetings, and of course we're safe and socially distanced and very cognizant of that. And the building is dead practically, but yeah. So like getting used to working from home too has been. I think I've done well with it because I like I said I have the luxury of my space. I also, we have the luxury of the technology we need. I'm also comfortable with technology, so there's that piece too. Dusted off an old second monitor that I had in the basement from my university days, which thankfully still works and had the right cords. So that was wonderful and it served me well and still works. So that's excellent. It was the best investment I made, I guess, in like 2005, I think. I'm pretty sure I bought this monitor in like 2005 or 6. Yeah.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
mean,
So,
coming like talking about that and like your work setup, it's funny because that's awesome. And for me, and this isn't me being like, oh, woe is me, poor me, because it's
are you
not.
sure? That's what I'm hearing.
I know, right? It's making you feel bad now. Gosh, you have an
Mhm.
office. Anyways,
I
living,
realize even people who live in homes, sorry to interrupt, but even people who live in homes, like I know people who live in like a house or they're by themselves and they're like, I don't even have a proper office setup. But the other thing is you couldn't buy desks at the beginning of the
no,
pandemic, remember?
no.
Like you couldn't. Anyway, sorry. Go
So,
ahead.
no, it's all good. No, you're right. Because I know for me, again, living in an apartment, I live with my family. So it's a very small space. And I'm the only one working from home because both my parents have to still go out and work um, wherever they're working at their businesses or place of business or work, whatever. But they have days off during the week sometimes. So it's also hard because I don't have an office space. I have an office space, but not an office space. I have my desk in my bedroom, but that's like my personal computer for like podcasts and YouTube and playing games and looking things up and things like that. So I didn't want to set it up as like my work desk either because then it takes away the enjoyment, we'll say, of recording videos and recording this or playing games and this and that because then this will become my work desk. So then I struggled with the okay, do I just do it on the side of the desk? Because I only use a laptop still. And that's my choice. I know I can get the equipment that I need for it, but like I was working on the laptop on the side, but then it's like, no, because it's still making that association a bit. So then it was moving myself into the dining room. So now I sit at work for it's work um at the dining room the dining room table in a dining chair and on a laptop, but because the dining room's out in the open, so if my parents are off, they'll sometimes be in the living room watching TV, which is fine. They have every right to do that. But because it's such close areas, if I have a meeting, I have to be like, I'm on a meeting, turn it down, please, or don't speak very loudly because I'm in a meeting or I'm about to take a phone call. So it's a lot of juggling that, which is fine. And we've managed, and they've been great with that. And they've been quite accommodating, which is amazing. So, but that's the thing. And I remember when we first were being told to go home. I remember that day you came in and
Yeah,
you
because
were
you
like,
asked me how
yeah,
I was, and I was like, I'm not good. And you're like go home. I'm
yeah,
like, yeah, I probably should do
I
that.
remember
And then
that.
I did. Yeah,
And then you did.
yeah,
And I'm happy you did because, yeah,
so lucky.
absolutely. And I think I was only there maybe that day or maybe the next day. I can't even remember. And then it was the okay, it's time to go home.
Hmm.
And I also kind of had the foresight, not the foresight, but when I first packed up my things, I took my laptop, obviously, and I took my headset, and then I have because people that know me in the office, I sometimes get warm at the office, so I have like a little desk fan. So
Oh
I,
yeah, yeah.
I even took my desk fan, I took my notebook, I took all that stuff just to be prepared just in case. And then yeah, I went home and I worked from home and I think yeah, I started going in after quite a while back into the office like once or twice a week for half days or one full day. And but before even that, I went in once I think on an evening because I had to plug in my laptop to get connected to like the network for like some IT thing, which I was kind of annoyed that I had to do that because it's like, really, come on. And it was for a password reset because I had to change my password because we have to change our password
Yeah.
routinely, but it didn't connect it, like it didn't work properly.
Uh-huh.
So I had to connect it to the network anyway. So then when I was there at that time, I was like, okay, time to take my plants that are at the office home with me because I had left them alone for like months at the office, but the cleaner who was still going, sweetheart that she was watering my plants. She was because she happened to
Oh,
be there and she was
she,
like,
yeah,
I was watering your
she's
plants.
so sweet. Oh my gosh. She's like a doll. It's funny, I was talking to my boss, it was a while ago, and I was thinking about our cleaner because she's lovely. Like she's just so sweet. And she and I have had different conversations because anyway, we've bonded over some stuff and she's lovely. And I was thinking about her and I was like, I hope that they're still working. And and then I thought to myself, of course they're still working. Like they probably have more work than ever in that field, right? So it's not like our workplace would have reduced the number of cleaners. They would have increased the number of cleaners, if anything. So she was fine. But you start thinking about like the support people that you have through, like, because we have, um, our workplace has our, I'll say our colleagues, and then we have contracted workers who come in for different services. And security, I'm sure, like, I don't know. I don't know if it seems like they're all still there for the
They're all
most part.
still there from what I've seen. Like
Yeah. Like
the
you see,
majority of them. Yeah.
yeah, I don't think they've cut back on those types of services. So I mean, at least you kind of feel a little bit like, okay, well, at least, things are sort of normal and nobody in our immediate sort of realm has necessarily been impacted that way in terms of their employment. So that's kind of nice. I mean, and that's the other thing I was thinking about just earlier, actually, was just sort of how lucky, really, like, I'll say lucky, but lucky I am around sort of, I still have my job. I am very privileged to be able to work from home. I'm very privileged to be able to work the same number of hours. My spouse is able to mostly work from home as well, and he has not reduced his hours. And you know what I mean? And thinking about sort of my immediate family, we've all been very lucky. In fact, my brother has, I think, gotten a better job through the pandemic, not as a result of the pandemic or anything. Like the field he's in just wasn't impacted quite as heavily. It was a little bit. My sister's wasn't for her directly either, and the field she's in wouldn't be because it's just a need that would always exist. So, and none of us are in sort of that frontline service sort of positions either, where we're not exposed or putting ourselves at risk by going to work, for example. And yeah, like we've all been very lucky that way. And it's, you kind of think back and it's been hard. It's still hard. It's not easy. um, New hobbies for sure, which I mean is good. Like you and I have spent a lot of time playing some games.
Playing some games, yes. I
Really got into Minecraft. I joined that book club and that University Association for Women group as well. And so that's been kind of nice. And that's been all done virtually. So, yeah, those types of things.
And that's
Um,
awesome because we're actually going to probably get into that in our part two of our podcast because we have a
oh,
double feature for this podcast with you. But
fancy.
no, you're absolutely right. It's definitely don't take for granted that, yes, very fortunate to still be employed full time, same hours, this and that. Absolutely. Don't want to take that for granted whatsoever. It's hard. It's hard on everybody, no matter what circumstances you're under. Some are more fortunate, but it doesn't mean that we're not all struggling with our own different things. They're just different, but we're fortunate enough to still be employed and have a job. And that's wonderful. And I, yeah, I don't take that for granted. I mean, my mom had been laid off for a bit of time, so I mean, that was hard on our family and hard on her, but I mean, I don't take my job for granted because I can see what happens.
Well, that's just it. And I mean, and I'm also, I don't want to go here necessarily, but I'm also very, um, I won't say fortunate, but I'm very happy that, for example, my parents are like they have gotten their first vaccine. They are not against getting the vaccines, for example, those types of things. Now, I do have a couple of family members who have to be careful about their vaccines because of different medication allergies, and that's a little bit different. That's just being cognizant of your health. But nobody's like, I'm against the vaccine because we're going to get 5G'd or whatever. Like, there's none of that sort of nonsense going on. My parents are very much like almost first in line when their age group came up. Like they're older, so they're able to get it. They were able to get it pretty quickly. My spouse's parents as well. Like they were able to navigate the system, and that's the other thing. They were able to navigate the system. They were able to get their shots. They both, they're able to do that, and they have all gotten their first round of vaccines, which is good, um, and no side effects from them, which is also good. Um, so we'll see. I don't know when they're getting their second one. I feel like it might be the end of May, but anyway, their schedule. My spouse actually was able to get his first one too because of where he works. So yeah, and
And
I'll
that,
sign up as soon as I can.
yeah, that's awesome. I mean, kind of same here. My dad, fortunately, will be getting his vaccine very soon, and my mom is fully vaccinated because she's an essential caregiver to my grandmother,
Right.
in a long-term care home. So very fortunate, and yeah, same thing. Uh, they have no problems with the vaccine. I was very happy about that. I mean, obviously we won't go there, but it's like you have questions and you question some things, obviously, like anything else that's
Of
new.
course.
But yeah, we're trusting what
Trusting the
the
science.
science and the
Yes,
healthcare professionals say, so that's
that's
what we're
right.
relying on. And I mean, if not, you're relying just on yourself, and we've seen from past years long ago what just relying on yourself gets you. But
And what not doing anything gets you, seeing and looking at other countries. Not to say at this point we're not doing great either.
no, we're not. But
We need to smarten up and we need to figure this out a little bit. And I don't know exactly what's going on, but it's tough mentally. I get that. I'm not taking away from that for anybody at this point. I mean, it's hard. It's been a long year. And like I said, I'm fortunate in a lot of ways for myself, and it's still been hard. So I can't even imagine if there was a ton of different other stressors and factors in play, like having kids where you don't know if they're going to school next week or not, depending on everything. Yeah, so it's we're very lucky, and I continue to think about that positive thing, but also give myself that room to recognize that this still isn't normal. I don't know what normal is going to look like in years to come, but this is not normal.
yeah, absolutely. And I guess we'll just see what the future holds. But, anyways, thank you so much for joining me for the first part of our double feature podcast. Not sure when the second one will come out, but looking forward to it. I'm sure everyone else is too. So I want to thank you again for coming. Thank you to all our lovely listeners or watchers. Um, don't forget, you can listen to this podcast wherever podcasts are distributed. So, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and the list goes on and on and on. And if you have any questions, want to be featured, or have questions for some of my guests, you can always email me at realtalkwithpatrick@gmail.com. Again, that's realtalkwithpatrick at gmail.com. So I just want to thank you all for listening again, and I hope you have a great day. Goodbye.